So a couple of things I just wanted to share with you guys. So I did my first half marathon yesterday, as you guys might have seen on IG. I did that in 2 hours and 12 minutes, which was, I'm really happy with that time. It's a big effort. It works out at an average of 6 minutes and 13 seconds per kilometer over the full race. So some of them were closer to 5-minute Ks, some of them were closer to 7-minute Ks, but the average is 6:13. But there's a couple of things that I thought was really just quite effective in the whole thing of the day that I think, yeah, I'm always a big believer, and this should be applied to everybody, right? All of us have got passions, we've got hobbies, we've got things that we do, right? You know, Christine is prepping obviously to go away with her partner for a week. You know, if you're going on a major trip, for Chris to travel to the Gold Coast, all of the things that we do in life, if we take the lessons learned in those experiences and we apply them to other areas of life, you can get some really profound insights, right? And so if you think about the half marathon that I did on the weekend as an example of prepping for a week or for a goal that you're working towards in terms of the business, I think there's some lessons in that for you that I think you can take something from. So the first one was obviously that you don't just run 21.1 kilometers. You ideally start running smaller distances on a regular basis to build up, and then you have a major push. In this case, it was a one-day event, but for you guys, it could be a month or it could be a week where you do a real push to see what can I really accomplish and achieve in a solid week if I really go head first into it in a really aggressive way. And so I think that's a great metaphor in and of itself, right? I built up by doing 5Ks and then 7Ks and then 10Ks and 15Ks. I'd never run more than 15Ks before I did the half marathon. But in that, I just had to push myself on that final little bit, which was fine. So that as a base concept, I think is really good. If you imagine what you're doing currently in running, there's a thing called zone training. So there's sort of 5 zones of your heartbeat. You know, you want to try and get to a place where your everyday run is zones 2 and 3. So you can effectively run that forever. And so if you imagine when you guys show up for work every week, you're doing what might be probably like zone 3, zone 2, zone 3 training, where you're showing up, you're doing the work. You're not trying to kill yourself at the end of the day, but you're trying to do a good job, but not really strenuous. And then imagine what would it be like if you were to run in zone 5 and try to push yourself, right? What would that represent for you in terms of those days being sprints? Now, you can't do a full marathon in zone 5, you'd kill yourself. But the idea is that you want to be able to get to that place to build your cardio and your endurance and your stamina. Does that make sense? So I didn't realize until the end of the race yesterday, but because I hadn't trained for 2 weeks because I was injured, I did the whole marathon, and 96% of the half marathon yesterday in zone 5. My heart rate was redlining the whole way through. So even now when I breathe, I still feel like I've got chest pains. It's not good. So I was like, I wonder why I'm experiencing so much tightness in my chest. It's because literally my heart was like palpitating the entire 21 kilometers. So don't recommend that. But the idea is that you build a resilience to running at that distance, and that helps. But there's a couple of logistical things that I really want to highlight for you guys that I think are super transferable. Number one is the ability to see in real time your progress. So please write that down, the ability to see in real time your progress. So I bought a Garmin watch for my training at the beginning of the year. And to be fair, I didn't really know how to use it until just before the marathon started yesterday. So I did on Saturday night, I was up late and I was Googling YouTube videos on how to set it up properly. And I found out that there's a setting that I can put in to the watch. I can download the track. I can then put into the watch my time that I want to finish it in, and it'll break down all of the race, including like there's sometimes we have to run up a hill, right? So it'll calculate, well, you're not going to probably run up the hill at the same pace you're running flat. So you can then adjust that in real time, and it spits out for you kilometer by kilometer what time you should run that kilometer in order to hit your target at the end of 21.1 kilometers. And then when you're running, it gives you an updated screen on the watch of what your goal time is, what you're actually running at, and if you're ahead or behind overall. So you know, am I actually beating my time, or I'm going to be further behind my time? What does that look like? And I was like, fuck, that's amazing. So I knew pretty much after 5-6Ks in, my goal time was to do under 2 hours, which is a ludicrous goal. But I was like, look, if I'm going to fucking do a half marathon, I may as well go after something that's a bit crazy. And so to put that into context, if you're running my best ever 5 kilometers was 27 minutes. My best ever 10 kilometers was 60 minutes. So that's 6 minutes a K. I would have to run a 21 kilometers in faster than I ran the 10 kilometers in fact, faster than I ran my best ever 5 kilometers in, right? So it's like, to do that is a huge ask. But I ended up doing 2 hours and 12 minutes. So I was only behind by 12 minutes, right? So I was really happy with that. But I knew I was going to be behind by 12 minutes from probably about 15 Ks in, because my watch had then told me, hey, you're currently plus like 10 minutes in your time. And so, but I could see what I was going to finish at in real time as I was running. And so then I've got to make a mental decision at 15 Ks. Do I have it in me and my legs, my energy and everything else to increase my speed to the point where I'm going to be able to hit my target? Or am I now instead, am I setting a secondary target to aim towards, which is like sub 2:15, which was then my next target? Because I was like, I just don't have enough in my legs to be able to make that happen, right? And that's more than anything just a mental limitation, right? But it was important to know what my time was, and I was able to maintain I was able to stay on track for about 15 Ks of the 21 Ks to my goal. And I can tell you right now, there's no way I would have run a 2:12 if I hadn't had a goal of running a 2K and being able to track in real time, like literally meter by meter, what my goal was going to be and where I was going to finish. So I think one of the biggest things is having the ability to get real feedback in your work, in anything that you're doing, whether that be a weight loss goal, a financial goal, a health and fitness goal. Noah, did you have a question on that?
Just curious if you knew that the 2 hours was going to be like a huge challenge for you beyond what you thought was capable.
Yes, 100%.
Okay.
So
you're not aiming for what you can achieve?
No, God, no.
Okay.
So my first goal when I did the half marathon was just to finish, because quite literally at the beginning of this year, I'd never run 5Ks before. And my 5Ks at the start of the year was a walk and run 5Ks. Like I would push a leela for a bit, and then I would stop and I'd catch my breath, and I'd push a leela and I'd catch and stop, catch my breath. So my first ever 5Ks was like 35 minutes, right? And then so I did that. And then and then it took me probably 3 5Ks before I could run the 5Ks without stopping. And then I started running a bit more. And then I started doing like 6 or 7Ks, and then eventually a 10K run. My first 10K run was over an hour. And then I did a 15K run, but I'd never run 21 before. And I knew, look, it would be amazing to have a sub 2 hour half marathon, but I knew that was a massive stretch. And I wasn't aiming for that. And then I saw my sister on Saturday, and she told me that her first half marathon, she'd only trained for a month and she'd done a 1 hour, 52-minute half marathon. I'm like, fuck, now I'm going to be in my head about this. Keeping in mind, I'm running this at 105 kilos, and she would have been at that time maybe 65 kilos. So the weight difference of running that distance is massive, right? Like it's a huge, huge difference over time. But I was like, look, it's possible. It's possible to fucking run a sub 2 hour marathon. And I'm going to get to another thing, which was what I wrote in my hand for the run. So my goal was to try to stay in the game for as long as possible, right? And I think this is an important principle for everybody. Like I knew going in that it was very, very unlikely that I was going to get a 2 hour half marathon time. I knew it was very unlikely. One, because I'd never run a half marathon before. I had no reference for that. Two, I'd never run more than 15 Ks before. So that next 6 Ks is a big 6 Ks, right? And my 15K time was nowhere near what it needed to be to run a 2 hour. So even my shorter distances, I wasn't on track for that. And then also I hadn't been able to run for 2 weeks prior because I'd injured my hip flexor. So my physio and my team had told me, don't run, just rest. So I'm not going in with a heap of momentum. I'm going in cold. I don't know what's going on. So I knew it was going to be a big ask. But my goal was, I've got 21 Ks. If I can get to like halfway through and still be engaged, then I've got a chance. And if I can get to 15 Ks and still be engaged, I've got a chance. And then I can find the will to pull. And I think if you get close to a goal, and as you get closer to the finish line, if you still feel it's possible, then you're going to be able to push the extra bit. But if you feel like, oh, wow, fuck, I've lost this after 2 Ks in, I'm going to really struggle. So there's real significance in that and getting the real data. In addition to that, though, what was also really fantastic is, and please write this down, you want to have somebody to pace against. You want to have somebody in life to pace against. So they talk about the idea that comparison is the thief of joy, right? Where if you're comparing yourself to somebody, you're not going to be able to live in joy. And that's very true, right? You've got to find a place to feel really happy in your life. But what's also important as well is we all need to have people to look up to chase, to be stretched by. And in the race, the organizers have got what's called paces. So if you know, I want to finish at a certain time, then they've got people that will run a 4 kilometer half marathon, 4.5, 5 kilometer, 4 minutes, 4.5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5.5, 6, 6.5, 7, etc. So for every 30-second interval, they've got people, a team of 3 people that will just run the race at that time for you. And then they've got a flag on their back that says, I'm running at 4 minutes and 30 seconds or 5 minutes and 30 seconds. And so you don't need to have the watch. Effectively, you can just see that person and just run with them the whole way, right? And so I was like, okay, great. Well, I start at the front of the marathon. And then I try to stay with the people that were doing the 5Ks for as long as possible, because 5-minute kilometers would blitz it in. And as soon as I lost those, I try to stay with the 5.5-minute people for as long as possible. And then as soon as I lost those, eventually after a while, about 15, 16 Ks in, the 6-minute people passed me. And I knew at that point, it was pretty much game over, because 6 minutes is a 2 hour and 6 minute half marathon. And when they lapped me, I was like, fuck, I just don't have the juice to keep up with them. And so I was like, I'm going to probably finish somewhere around about 2:15, hence I did 2:12. So it's important though to have, like, you've got your own goal, but sometimes like that's quite artificial, right? Like having a goal on a piece of paper is not as powerful as having somebody to chase. So for me, you know, if I know, and I'm very competitive, right? So when I was going through high school, I wanted to try to win at everything that I did. And so I would just identify who was the smartest fucking person in the class. And then whatever they did, my goal was to try and do better than what they did. So if they were studying for 3 hours, I would study for 4 hours. If they submitted a week early, I'd submit like 10 days early. And I just try to do whatever I could to be slightly better than that person. And ironically, I did 6 subjects and I finished second in 5 of 6 subjects. But that got me a much better result than what I would have done had I not had somebody to pace. So for me, if you were looking at who is the top player in the team, obviously Nottage, you've got the leaderboard currently for this last couple of events, but obviously historically that's been Christine. For me, my goal would be, what's Christine's numbers, right? What does she do on a given day? And I just want to make sure I do more than what she does. And that might not mean that I get a better result than her, because obviously talent and skill comes into play, but I want to at least make sure that my effort is greater, right? I think that's really important. And so having somebody that you're running against, it's like, cool. And some of you might want to just run with somebody because you enjoy the camaraderie of that. It doesn't have to be a negative competition, but I'm a negative competitor, right? Like I want to beat somebody as opposed to I want to run with somebody. So that really does help as well. So first principle is you need to get real-time feedback, right? That's huge. Actually, first principle is set a goal that you don't think you can achieve and then fail, but you'll still fail beyond what you would have done if I'd set the goal of just to finish. Because if I was just trying to run the race to finish, which is my original goal, I might have done like 2.5, right? Because I was like, well, I'm finishing. But my goal to finish at 2 meant that I finished at 2:12, which was way better than what my goal would have been had I not had a goal at all. So that's the first pillar. The second pillar is get real-time feedback, to know in real time how you're going. Number 3 is to have somebody to pace against, somebody that's probably slightly better than you to run up against. And that might not be, by the way, that might not be somebody that's in this group, right? Because if you're the top dog in the group, you got no one to compete against. You're running against yourself. So you might need somebody that's not in this. You might need somebody that's, you know, in your friendship group that's doing some amazing stuff financially, or you might need somebody that you follow online to be your proxy. So I've been very fortunate to have a series of mentors over the years that are doing way more than me to be that sort of proxy. And funny thing is, one of my first real mentors that have stayed with me for a long time, in fact, he's now my coach as well from a physical perspective, Travis, his last name is Jones. So it was always like keeping up with the Joneses. But for me, keeping up with the Joneses meant running businesses and making big things happen and like doing crazy shit. So that's always been a good proxy to like lean against and go, how am I on track by comparison to that person? So that's number 3. Number 4 was throughout the race, there was aid stations. And I think this is important. So running 21 Ks is fucking difficult, like really fucking difficult. And it was amazing actually to see how many different types of people were doing it. Like I was getting beat by 60-year-old women, and I was getting beat by people in wheelchairs pushing themselves. One kid was running, like just a young kid. I reckon he was maybe like in his early 20s, late teens. And he had one leg. He's running on a prosthetic fucking leg. And he's not even like, you know, sometimes they've got like those elite running legs. He doesn't have this. He's just got literally, it looks like a Captain Hook's leg. like on his leg, and he's just sort of hobbling, and he's doing like 5-minute kilometers hobbling. I'm like, fuck, that's inspiring as fuck. How amazing is that? I know there's people in bed right now in Perth, some of you fuckers, they're like, oh, I couldn't get out of bed at the time. And this kid with one fucking leg is up. He's running a 5-minute K. It's amazing. So that was inspiring just to be part of that. But there's aid stations. So pretty much every 5 or so kilometers, they've got like physio, they've got ambulance, obviously, in case you really need it. And then they've got like water stations. So I think the idea of having sprints and rest, sprints and rest, sprints and rest in amongst the bigger, which is the race per se, really helps. Because if you were just trying to do that race without any hydration or any stop moments for rest, it would actually be very, very difficult. So having even those little bits where you slow down, you get a drink of water, you refresh yourself and you go again, it breaks up the bigger distance into smaller distances. And I think that's an important principle for everybody as well. There are times where you don't think you can do any more than what you're doing. And so in those moments, you're not trying to finish a 10K or a 20K race, or finishing the next 7Ks. You're just trying to do the next couple of 100 meters. And then the next couple of 100 meters, right? Or you try to do the next K and then the next K. So the ability to take big things and break them down into smaller distinctions really does help, because there's going to be times where you're like, fuck, I don't really want to do any more calls. So just do one more call, and then just do one more call, and then just get to the end of the hour. So you've got to be able to have that mental game plan in your head, which is that when I don't want to keep going, what am I going to do? And then the final thing that I want to share with all of you is a reason why you're doing it in the first place. And so, I don't know why this didn't even really appear to me, but the whole thing is called HBF Run for a reason. You're meant to be running for a reason. And I was just running because originally I set the goal to do a half marathon, and this was the first half marathon that I could do, right? So that was the whole goal. But I was like, that's not a fucking compelling reason. And so when I'm at the start of the race and I'm sort of walking around waiting for everybody to start, there's a big banner for HBF that says, remember the reason why you're running. And I was like, fuck, Cal, you better have a reason why you're running, because I know there's going to be times where you're probably going to want to quit during this race. It would be probably a good idea to get clear on what that is. So then I went and grabbed this sort of guy that was in a roadblocker truck, right? Basically to stop people driving onto the wrong parts of the road. I was like, man, did you get a pen? He says, yeah. So then I wrote down the name of the girls, Alila and her sister's name. I rubbed that one out. And then I wrote 2 hours. And I was like, look, and I wrote it particularly on this left hand, and this is an important principle, which is called visual anchors, right? That you all should have. We've talked about this already anyway, about having a room and a space that inspires you. But I wrote it on my left hand because that's where my watch hand is. So every time I check my watch, I was also seeing the 2 reasons why I was running in my goal time. Now, this little last bit is a bit sadistic, so you don't certainly need to copy this. But the reason why I wrote the girls' names down was obviously I wanted to run for them. I wanted to run and be the person that was capable of running a 2-hour half marathon for them. But also as well, I would visualize crossing the finish line and Alila running up to me and saying, Alila proud, right? And it was like I would get choked up while I was running, just thinking about that scene. And then if there was times when I was feeling like I wasn't going to be able to finish the race, or I was really struggling, or I wanted to stop running, or I wanted to quit, then I would visualize the idea that if I didn't get to that finish line in 2 hours, both of the girls are dead. And so as a negative motivator, and I've seen a lot of guys do similar things when they're in the gym, right? When they're doing a bench press, it's like, if you don't lift this weight, your kids die. Like, as a negative motivator, there's not much more that's motivating you to try and push forward as part of that. So obviously you've got to be able to balance that with positive psychology as well, not just really negative stuff, because you can get yourself into a pretty dark place. But for me, that was really significant. And it certainly helped me continue to run. So with the exception of like one ramp, I was walking up this ramp to try and get off the freeway. Other than that, I ran the full 21 Ks, and the ramp was only maybe 50 meters or something, like 60 meters. So I think there's some good lessons for all of you guys, and including myself as well in that. I don't want to preach to you this morning, but hopefully you can get something from that and go, okay, well, how can I incorporate more of that into my work, right? So, and it doesn't matter about the work that we do here. Obviously, the work we do here is a bonus. But in terms of your family life, in terms of your physical fitness, in terms of your relationships, in terms of your health, all of those things should have the same principles in place, right? What's a goal that you don't think you can accomplish and achieve? Have you got real-time feedback? Have you got somebody that you're pacing against that's inspiring you to know that it's possible that you could run? Like if you're the only person running, you don't realize that someone else out there that doesn't look as fit or healthy as you, that normally you would discount mentally, but is out there doing way better than you. That's inspiring. It's like, fuck, if that person can do it, I can fucking do it. So you need somebody to pace against, right? Then you also need as well regular stops and intervals just to catch your breath, to get a glass of water. You need rest breaks in amongst the bigger sprint. And then on top of that, you also need a reason why you're doing it in the first place. Because during the difficult times, it's not the goal that's going to motivate you to get there. It's having a purpose for the doing it in the first place, right? It's like, you need the positive toward and away from motivation. So hopefully that helps with you guys, and you can take that into anything that you guys are doing, get something from it as well. And if nothing else, you had a nice morning chat. Does anyone have any questions on that or any reflections from that little bit of information that I've shared that you guys might be able to incorporate into what we're doing here or what you're doing personally?
Love the idea of a pacer, someone to match against, to keep you head to head. Yep. It's easy to go, whatever, you know, and then it's like, okay, if you've got someone who's, I don't know, holding you accountable, or someone you're competing against, definitely helps keep you on track. My takeaway. Well, just on that, the 2 times I've run my best ever 5 and 10Ks before I did the race on the weekend was when I was running with a friend and a pacer that was actually way fitter than me. The first time I was running my first 5K was with my sister, and this is how fucking crazy she is. I set my best ever 5K time, which was like 26 minutes, and she did that with me on a broken foot. She didn't know she had a broken foot at the time. She just was in a lot of pain. She got a scan done later, realized it was broken. But it was because I was running with someone that was fitter than me, that was telling me, hey, you're capable of more than this. Come on, let's keep going. So you need somebody in your corner, like a corner man fucking pushing you, right? And then the second time I did my best ever 10K prior to the race was when I was running with Kerry, and he's a fucking elite athlete, right? So having those people to push against is really valuable. And even if you set up a chat privately with somebody else in the team to pace against as well, to go, hey, what are we doing today? Let's go after it and make it happen. The ability just to have that level of competitive collaboration, cooperation, and union makes a big difference, makes a huge difference, because you know you're accountable to somebody else other than yourself, right? That makes a massive impact. Yeah, so it really does help. Andy, any thoughts or reflections from you?
I think just keeping yourself motivated. You know, sometimes you just, like you said, you can't be fucked making that one more call, but you just have to say just one more, just one more, and just push through it. And then before you know it, it's been that hour, and then you can start the next one.
100%, brother. Chris, for you? You're muted, bro, which I don't mind, but just want to let you know.
Yeah. I got a lot of things out of that. So, sorry, my brain is elsewhere at the moment.
You're tired, bro. It's okay, bro. I get you, bro. Is your leg sore from your half marathon that you did on the weekend?
No, but my brain is definitely sore from the entire weekend from Thursday. So
yeah, good, bro. Good. I love that for you, bro. Christine, any reflections from you?
No, it was all good stuff that you just shared. I am very disciplined, and I can motivate and discipline myself, you know.
Right.
I've just had to do it a lot, so I'm used to it.
So what I'm hearing Christine says that she's signing up with me to do the next half marathon together, and we're gonna wear matching fur coats like what you're wearing now, Christine. How about that as an idea? Okay, let's do it. Awesome, team. Well, I hope, as I said, I hope you take something away from the insights and you can apply them to your life. And even if it's just one little thing makes a difference, it's going to make a huge impact. Obviously, the cumulative effect of all of those things makes a difference. That helps. One final thing, actually, I forgot to say before I move on and we have a chat to Conrad and to Tina. One of the things that people do during the race is they'll take what's called energy gels. And some of you might be familiar with this if you do long-term riding. Andy, I think you might do some. Have you ever done big bike rides or anything before, Andy?
Not bike rides, no.
Oh, okay, cool. For some reason, I thought you might have been like an endurance cyclist at some point. Anyway, so one of the things that
I appreciate that.
Yeah. You're an elite kayaker. Weren't you doing one of the calls of us on a kayak in the middle of the ocean at one point?
I got 5 confirmations in 30 minutes. It was very effective.
I can get back out there, bro. What are you doing in the house like a real person? Anyway, Chris does actually have a reflection, actually. Oh, Chris, please.
Yeah. So this is it sort of ties into what you were saying earlier, but I think I actually found the meaning of life when I went to the one.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So
fuck me, Chris. Put that on a brochure, guys. Guys, what are you going to get out of this weekend? Well, we're going to teach you about money. But one of our most recent clients said that they had, and I quote, found the meaning of life.
Literally. So at the end of the event, Roy was like asking, okay, what did you guys get out of this session? And I said, I think I found the meaning of life. Know the rules of the game, know what you're playing for, and know why you're in the game. I
saw that. No shit. This is not a joke. I saw a post about that. Did you post that?
Yep.
Oh, yep. I think I saw your post.
I was
like, fuck, I saw that on Instagram the other day.
Yeah.
Good, man. Yeah, I like that. What are the three things? Know the game that you're playing, know why you're playing the game, know what the rules of the game are.
Yep, that's it.
Nice. I like that, man. I like it.
Thanks.
I'm glad you had the awakening at One Life. Roy would have loved you saying that.
Oh, he did. He laughed it up.
Oh, you're frothing. He would have been clicking you. He would have been clicking you like
he
this.
He was clicking, and he was like, he full blown was like, I appreciate you coming. Yeah.
So well done to Chris, who solved the Rubik's Cube of life. One final thing I want to share with you guys before you go is sometimes if you're going to try and do things you've never done before, you're going to have to take risks. You're going to have to take risks. And in that risk, you might take a risk that allows you to achieve something you've never achieved before, but you could also take a risk and it could fuck up everything for you. And while I'm sharing this with you guys, I'm reflective of like all of you have taken risks. You took risks to be part of this company. You're taking risks every day when you get on the phone, you try a new strategy. Christine, I'm sure you remember a couple of weeks ago, you tried a new strategy for one of the events. It didn't work very well. And I remember you saying, I'm going back to my old strategy. I tried something new and it didn't work, right? But that's part of the energy, right? So in running a half marathon, from a biological perspective, you can store glycogen in your muscles, like sugar effectively in your muscles and in your fat cells for about 90 minutes. But after 90 minutes of really intense energy, you've got no more energy left. So when people talk about hitting the wall, it's normally after about 90 minutes into a big race, because then they've run out of energy and the body can't get fat quickly enough digested and turned into energy quick enough. So you get really sluggish at about 90 minutes in. So people take these little gels, these sugar gels, every 30 minutes in a race so that they never lose that balance over the course of a race. Then they sort of taper themselves out, right? Now, everybody that you'll speak to, you jump on any YouTube channel will tell you, do not take energy gels in a race if you've never taken them before. Because during a race, what happens is your body is using so much energy that you just don't digest food properly. And so a lot of people get like gastric distress, right? Where some people during marathons will actually shit themselves. Your body just stops digesting food. It can create some real issues. People get stomach cramps. It's a real major problem, right? Your body's shutting down. It's not meant to run like that. And so anyway, because I hadn't trained in 2 weeks, I hadn't used any of these energy gels, but I knew I was probably going to need the energy gels to finish the race, especially if I wanted to finish in 2 hours. So I spoke to my sister. She said, don't take them. You don't need them. And then I was like, fuck, I'm going to buy them anyway. And then I spoke to my coach and I was like, hey, what do you think? Do you think I take these gels and risk it? Or do you think not? I said, most people have told me, in fact, everybody's told me not to take them. I said, but most people are little bitches. Do I take them or do I not take them? He's like, fucking take them. You'll be fine. And so I was like, fuck it, I'm going to just go for this. If I'm going to finish in 2 hours, I've got to be willing to risk it. And worst case scenario, if I take it and I'm really, really crook, I'm still going to finish the race, which is my original goal. I'm just not going to finish in 2 hours. Anyway, I took them. I was fine. But it's a major risk in the middle of a race to be able to put a little bit of extra in to give you the hope to get across the finish line when it's untested. And I think, you know what, even if I had a negative response, one of the key questions you want to ask yourself is, what type of person do you want to be? Do you want to be a sort of person that's willing to risk it all to try and go after a big outcome? Or do you want to be the sort of person that plays it safe? For me, I'm always the person that wants to risk it all. I'm always the person that wants to go, hey, I didn't come here to try to finish. I came in to try and finish in 2 hours. And so if it means I don't finish at all because I was trying to make that happen, or it means that I end up blowing it up because I tried something new, I'd rather take that hit than to not have taken it and go, oh, I could have done 2 hours and 12, but if I'd done the electrolyte gels, what if I could have